That was fun. I looked forward to that. It was during From Beyond, when we went into the Beyond, there was all this gelatinous, jelly, clear stuff that was used on Dr. Pretorius's body, and sometimes when I was going up the stairs, they used water that looked like the gel, and what the gel was actually made out of was methyl cellulose, which I don't know if they still use it today, but it was the thickener in McDonald's milkshakes.
True.
Yeah, and it was really cold. And at this place that we filmed, the Dino De Laurentiis Studios, I guess maybe the bank took it over or something. There was something about that.
There were no heaters, no air conditioners, there was nothing.
And it was, we started shooting in like April, I think, or it was right around Easter. And it was really cold there, so they used to have these big heaters that they would blast on, and they were very noisy, and we'd have heat for 10 minutes, and everything would be toasty, and then they would turn it off, and we'd be, shooting for an hour, and we would be freezing again. So many times I had to be covered in this stuff, especially towards the end when Pretorius was active and touching me and groping me, whatever. And I said, guys, you gotta warm this up for me. I mean, I can't act, I'm freezing, I'm shivering. It was really hard to act with shivering glob all over you. So that was kind of an uncomfortable moment. And when I jumped out of the window, that was really hard too. At the end.
That's one of the most chilling ends of a movie.
I didn't jump out of the window.
But your last close-up in that movie is really fabulous. I mean, it's a madness. It's
I was trying to convey, I don't know if it was in the script, I was just trying to convey that it just made, the whole thing made me go crazy.
Broke your mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, I counted it up 30 days in that bald sort of, pineal gland in, out makeup, 30 days, and it was really torturous sort of makeup. It was just very difficult. And I remember one day, they were shooting other things at that soundstage, and it was lunch break, and I was in my room, and I was really fucked up. I mean, it was one of those days where there was blood, there was scabs, it was the worst I ever looked in that movie. And I'm eating my lunch in my dressing room because in the cafeteria, everybody was gagging if they, I would ruin everybody's lunch. So I'm in there like Quasimodo, like all kind of huddled up, really feeling ugly. And I stepped out of my dressing room, and there were a dozen little kids in little mushroom hats. They were shooting an Italian commercial there, and they were all like, and I stepped up. And they screamed and ran in horror. And I have never felt so ugly.
But, our pain and what we went through was nothing compared to what Jonathan Fuller endured in Castle Creek. Maybe you want to talk about that?
That was at 8. John Coolidge of Optic Nerve, who they won the Emmy for Battle on 5 makeup.
They seem to think, they told me, I believe them, that it kind of set a record as far as length, because it was 8 hours going into it, and then I'd have a day of shooting, or a few hours at least, and then 2 hours coming out of it. And it was, that was a tough one. The hardest thing, this wasn't Coolidge's fault at all, but the whole chest piece was like a wetsuit, a rubber thing that, we just put that on first and then applied stuff, the neck, the cowl piece, the face piece, the shoulder pieces, the hand pieces, the nails, the hip pieces. But when we got over to Italy, they had to make another one, because it only had so much life to, and they did this process where they wrapped me in saran wrap and painted rubber cement on me for some reason. I can't remember how the process worked, but the rubber cement in Italy was a little different from the rubber cement in America chemically, and I got like this, you guys, I don't know if you remember this, but I got like this second-degree burn on my chest from that. And, you know, it was, so that was, yes, that was very uncomfortable. But the most frustrating thing, I think, for me was that, well, there were two things. One, I was in Italy, it's hard to communicate anyway. And two, I had these teeth in, so that even if Stuart said, like, well, would you do this for this scene? I'd have, well, you know, it was very frustrating. I couldn't talk to him. And the other thing, I remember, like when I chain whipped Agnese to death, it was very early on, and I realized that I had one eye covered, so I had no depth perception. And I damn near chain whipped this old lady, you know. I mean, it's like, Stuart was really angry with me. It's like, dude, I can't, you know, so that, yeah.
We need her for the next scene.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're shooting out a sequence.
So that was the downside of it. But I went into this fully knowing that what I was getting into, really. And at that point in my career, it was like, when I was growing up, I watched and really got into Lon Chaney Sr. and that whole idea of the Man of a Thousand Faces and that heavy makeup stuff. And I, you know, realized, I mean, no one was going to pay me to play Quasimodo because I didn't have a name, but this is sort of my chance to do that kind of contortionistic role. So I signed on, you know, and, you know, back in Italy again at the same castle with all, you know, the great food and the fun people, and it was, so it was a little different. It was harder, but it was like, for 3 weeks I was in the dressing room not eating with anyone.
Yeah, things are a little different in Italy. You know, the climax of that movie, we're up on the roof, really pretty dangerous,
Yeah.
actually.
4 or 5 stories in the air.
And it's got to rain. So their solution in Italy was, we will bring in fire trucks and run the hoses up there and spray them down on you all, right? Sounds like a good plan.
So we're on a slanted roof,
Tile roof like this with water coming down.
And it was slippery.
And it's very slippery, very, very dangerous. And the roof would come down, and then there's a walkway with a low wall, and then death. So you have to be really, really careful up there. And the thing I remember is the fire, this is what they didn't think about, is the water comes down, but the water, we were shooting at night. What is it, like 40 degrees outside?
Because we're on top of a mountain.
So it's like ice shower, and you're drenched in it, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to do another shot, you know,
And the tiles have got that lichen kind of
like moss-like
stuff that happens to get real slippery when it's wet. So on top of that, we're going like, da-da,
Yeah, it was quite a dangerous and very uncomfortable, you know, surprised we didn't get pneumonia.
It's very good for Joe.
But did you also ask about good physicality things? Is that what you're saying? But we kind of went on and on about how terrible these things were.
I didn't hear good, I heard
No,
what sucked.
that was the second part of his question. I worked in soap operas, so I have a really good memory. That's why I remember that question.
Yeah.
For me, in From Beyond, because I got to play a character that goes through so many different transformations, physically for me that was great. I played the repressed doctor, and then, you know, the sexual woman from the beyond that feels everything that she wants to feel. So for me, donning the leather and having that experience was really, really fun for me to play that all in one movie.
It was fun for all of you too.
Do you guys have any good?
For me, I'll add to that, Pin the Pendulum was like my first film, really of note or at all. And so I'm in Italy, I'm running around in a castle, not a set, but in a castle with a rapier and dagger playing Errol Flynn kind of moments. And it was like, and getting paid and eating great food. And it's like, you're paying me for this? God.
Yeah,
It was so...
For 2 hours, we would have lunch when we were in Italy.
Oh, yeah.
They just shut the set down. We had wine at lunch. We had somebody making homemade pasta.
Oh, my
It
God.
was a really nice experience.
Yeah. And with Castle Freak, despite all that stuff, I was able to kind of live a fantasy childhood, which was really cool.
Yeah.
You know, you don't often get to do that and have it on film, for better or for worse. My wife still has not seen it. She refuses it, but that's okay. So yeah, there is definitely some good stuff with that.
All of that. Sometimes you remember movies because of the work you did in them, and sometimes you remember movies because of where they were shot and the experience that you had. For both of those movies, it's, wow, we were in Italy and not too shabby.
Not too shabby.
Yes, Steve.